So
Yes.
before we get into bots, let's talk a little bit about being on the PyCharm core development team. Can you give us a
Well,
little bit of your origin story on how you got into that, the kinds of things you're doing right now, and what you think about it?
all right. Well, Python core developer, not PyCharm. I thought just
Sorry,
making that clear.
I missed.
Yeah, I know. Yeah, I started contributing about 3 years ago. I reached out to Guido van Rossum. I said I'm interested to contribute to open source. I have no idea how, and he replied, and he's been helping me and mentoring me since then. But when I became core developer, that was the time when we just moved our code base from Mercurial to GitHub. And the code base was moved, it's fine, but it's a change of workflow, change of lifestyle for core developers who's been used to using Mercurial as the repository. But one of the reasons we want to use GitHub is because it has lots of APIs. It means there are potentials of automating some of our boring tasks. And since then, so basically when I started, we have CPython already has two GitHub bots. They are called, it's actually on here. They are called the Knights Who Says Ni and Bedivere, and they have very specific jobs. Like the Knights Who Say Ni, the only job is checking if people who made pull requests, if they have signed the CRA. It has that one job. Bedivere bot does some more things like checking for status, applying labels. And when I saw these bots, I found them really interesting. I had no idea how it worked before, but it's just interesting how it works. Like the bots always working even when we are not working. And at some point, at one of the boring tasks we have to do is backporting pull request. It is a very manual work, and if you've seen my talk, I actually share like there are like 6 command lines that you need to type to do a backport on the terminal, and it's very boring, very tedious. So we made a bot, and I've been involved in building that bot. That's called Miss Islington. So now instead of opening a terminal, doing a git fetch and whatever, we just apply the label into the pull request, say backport this, and the bot does everything. It does the backport, it does the cherry pick, it creates the pull request, and it also waits for all the status to pass, like all the CI, and then it merges it. So it does all of that. All we do is apply the label and like give an okay.
Right. Hey,
So
let's talk about that a little
yeah,
bit. I'm sure that a lot of people think, oh, the CPython core team, I could never, ever be able to contribute anything. But what you're talking about is making the core team more efficient and more effective. Is that right?
yes, where I help with, how do I say this? I freed the core developers the time of doing all these boring things so that they can actually focus on actually interacting with you, reviewing your pull requests.
Mm-hmm.
And about that contributing is hard. There are a lot of other areas where you can contribute to. And I know a lot of people come to me saying, I want to contribute code to C Python. But we need other kinds of help too. Like we need lots of help in documentation area.
Mm-hmm.
We need help in the dev guide. We need help with these bots. These are all open source projects that are very useful to Python. We can't live without these bots. We can't live without dev guide. And I would recommend looking into contributing to other areas and not just core Python. That would be my suggestion.
And even if people aren't able to justify it just by helping out an open source community. These are good professional skills, right?
Yeah, yeah. I learned a lot by just contributing to even learning to to build GitHub bots. I know a lot more about GitHub APIs than I need to, but I think it's very useful, and I just learned to just communicate better with people instead of giving orders and everything. You have
What's
to have
what's the kind of mood and discourse and conversation like on the core team?
um well,
Is it
actually it's very
intimidating?
it's it can be intimidating at first, especially when I had no idea how the mailing list will work. Like it was strange having your email read by like a few thousands people at first, but we do have a code of conduct. Everybody's are expected to be professional in their best behavior, and if if something makes you unhappy or you feel uncomfortable, just let one of us know.
Yeah, I feel bad for Emily Morehouse. The first thing she worked on when she got on the core team was the most contentious issue in the history of Python.
I I think it's great that Guido, like, I mean, any of the core devs probably could do this themselves, but they
Mhm.
choose to mentor somebody like Emily to do it. I think it's actually great. And
Yeah.
if the world can't be positive about it, I don't know. I'm happy for Emily.
Last question. The if I remember correctly, you have a Python enhancement proposal, a PEP, about moving to GitHub for the issue tracker. Is that correct?
That's right. That is PEP 581 and PEP 588.
All right.
Yeah.
So if anybody has an opinion on that, they can weigh in if they feel strongly about GitHub issues. And so with
Well,
that, let's switch over to talking about automating GitHub.
all right. So first of all, I want to share that this is basically a tutorial I have given at PyCon before. The tutorial is 3 hours long, but I will make it short and quick and just show you some quick live demos. And the URL is online. So GitHub-Bot tutorial, GitHub-Bot-tutorial dot readerdocs.io. So what we're going to do today, what I'm going to show you how to do today is going to greet a person, anybody who just created an issue in your pull request or your issues, you're going to reply automatically saying thanks or something like that. And the next is adding a reaction to the issue. So I think these are interesting, useful, and fun things. And I'm going to show you just how quick you can do this with Python and specifically with GitHub library. Before we start, the first thing you need to have is a GitHub token, and you can get that by going to GitHub developer settings. This is my bot's user, by the way. Generate new token, and let's say PyCharm demo token, and give it a repo access. So I recommend just give the bot specific permission, not everything. Um, and this is the token you want to keep. You'll only see this once, and keep it very safe and secret, because if people have access to this, they can hack your GitHub account. But this is my bot, and I will disable this after this. So this is just for demonstration purpose. So copy that. Now I'm going to open PyCharm. I've been using PyCharm, oops, for a long time. Um, webinar. I'm going to use Python 3.7. And by the way, if I'm going too fast, everything is in my, you can see the, you can read everything in here. This is the section I'm going through, like creating GitHub token and everything.
One person did ask if you could speak maybe a little closer to the microphone.
Oh, okay. I'm actually using my, let's try this. Is this okay?
Yep.
All right. All right. I'm going to create demobot.py and configure it, Python, and I'm going to store the token as an environment variable here. All right. And the code I will copy paste from here. And so the important part here is this line where we are instantiating the GitHub API. I'm telling it to use my personal access token, which is in the environment variable. And I'm going to say my username is actually Mariatta-Bot. That's where the token is from. Now, what I'm going to do right now is to try to have a bot that just creates an issue in GitHub. Using the GitHub API, if you look at the documentation, it tells you that to create an issue, make a post request to this URL and pass it the title and body. So I'm going to do just that with GitHub. So you will do this as await GitHub. That is my GitHub API. Make a post request. It says here, select that repos. Owner is Mariatta, and my repo is relationship issues. And just now it says pass in the title, webinar attendees. We need an emoji. You're going. And body. And that's all you need. And if we run it right now, oh wait, I need to install dependencies. I need to install Git, GitHub, and AIO HTTP. All right, oops. It's done, right? And run it. It's finished. Now, if we go back to if we go to my repo, there is an issue created by a bot. It's quick, right? Any questions so far?
Yes, first question is if you could show the token screen again, because that went by kind of fast.
Oh, okay. To go to the token screen, you would, to get there, basically you will go to your settings. So I'm going to open it in a new one. So settings, developer settings, personal access token, and generate a new token.
All right, great.
All right.
And a question about those tokens, maybe you'll get to it later, but what are their policies? Can you revoke them? Do they have
Yeah,
expiration dates?
there is no expiration date, but if you do go back there, you can delete it. If you
Okay.
don't like, if you think it's been compromised, and you can like adjust, like you can go back there, rename it, you can
Ah,
change the permission later on. So you can edit it yourself. So,
you
but
just
you just will not see the actual token anymore.
the unchecking that you just did to give it no
Mhm.
permissions, is that the moral equivalent of revoking it temporarily?
Um, I've never tried this, but I think so.
Okay.
Yeah,
Um, and the
but
last
you can,
question, can
yeah.
you go back to the other browser where you had your Sphinx docs?
My what?
The
Oh, yeah,
browser behind?
yeah,
Yep. That. And let's see. Okay, so if everyone wants to follow along on this, they can look at that URL up there real quick.
yeah, yes.
And what I will do is, if you can leave that up for just a second, I will type that into the chat. So HTTPS GitHub bot tutorial read the docs.io /latest. Hopefully I got that right. Okay, that's it for the questions we have right.
All right. Okay, so that is one example of making an API. So creating an issue without you actually going to GitHub. The next example I want to show is I'm going to add an emoji reaction to this because I like emoji. Um, let's go back to if you scroll all the way down, this is basically the bonus exercise here. To add a reaction to an issue, GitHub says this is in developer's preview, and we need to pass in an accept header like that. And the URL is post blah and pass in the content. So this is the tricky part, like passing in the accept header. How do we do that with GitHub? So that is the header that I'm just going to copy this because that's quicker. All right, to pass that in, all we have to do is in the post code here, just pass in accept equals and whatever header that GitHub says. And content, I want to give a hooray emoji. And I think the URL was issue number and slash reactions. So my issue number was 181. 181 reactions. And if I run this again, there was a typo. All right, great. Ta-da! How's that? It's fun.
That is fun.
Any questions so far? And it's so quick. It's like there's not a lot of code written. This is less than 10 lines of code. And the reason I want to show this is because I talked to various people who don't have GitHub bots yet. And I think it's not that they don't want a bot, they don't know how to, or they have no idea that things can be automated, or they think it's overly complicated. But it's this, well, there's like 10 lines of code that you need to
Yeah,
write.
and I think back to the hundreds of times I could have used this if I would have taken the 5 minutes to learn it.
And
I'm
yeah,
quite mad.
I know, and that's why I got frustrated when I know that this can be automated. Why are you doing this? So is there any questions so far about this before I go to the next one?
Nope. Some people had asked to leave the code on the screen a little bit longer, but I replied that they can go to the docs and follow along.
Yeah.
Let's see. I just got a question in somebody else that is asking. This can be the PyCharm free version. Nothing specific about professional in it, and nothing actually specific Charm at all.
No, yeah, you can definitely use any other editor,
Right.
and
So that.
I just happen to have the professional one.
Yep. Right. That's it.
Yeah. Okay. So this is just one way of having bots, right? You're making API calls, but the other way of having bot is having the bot react to something that happens on GitHub, and we will do that by having webhooks. So webhooks are it's a way for GitHub to notify you that there is something there's an event that happens on GitHub, and for that, what's my documentation? Um, I need to look at my documentation. So the next section of my tutorial talks about webhooks, and you can read it later. But there are a lot of events, like whenever an issue is opened, whenever somebody create a new pull request, and if you click through it, there are so many different kinds of events. So basically, you can have webhooks for every single of these events. What I'm going to focus on today, basically, whenever somebody opens an issue, I want to automatically reply saying, thanks for opening the issue. I will look into it later. So this is where it gets a little bit more complicated. What we will need to do is creating a web service that will handle those webhooks. But I'll just show you how you can set up the web service. You will go to your repo settings, and you need to be this needs to be a repo you own, so you cannot just create random webhooks to open source projects that on the internet. It has to be something that you own. So this is my own personal project that I use for testing. Go to webhooks and add a webhook. What will happen is that you need to specify a web URL, and GitHub will be making post requests to this URL. And you can do this with GitHub. And I don't want everything because right now I'm writing a bot that will respond to issues. So I'm going to just check the issues. But first we need to have a web service, right? So this is where it gets a little tricky. There will be some back and forth going on. And if you find me doing this too fast, everything is described in this page. So this is the response to webhooks. I am actually going to Heroku to create my web service. New app, Mariatta PyCharm demo, create the app, and then I need to actually have a code. And I do have the code written here. Actually, yeah. Let's do that. Create a directory, web service demo. Inside the web service, I will have another directory. Whoops, web service, sorry. um, main py. All right, and then there are several other files that Heroku needs in order to run our web service correctly. First is requirements.txt. This is just to tell Heroku to install the dependencies. So AIO, HTTP, and get GitHub. Only two. The next is a proc file. This is basically to tell Heroku that how to run our Python script. So to run my Python script, it is Python 3-m web service, and it is web service because my main file is inside the web service. And then let's run this, just make sure this is working. Python 3. I have so many. Why isn't it picking up the right one?
Try clicking on the Configure Python Interpreter pop-up in your top part of your screen and get it to find the VNV directory.
Ah, yeah, all right. Okay, yes, great.
All right, so something is malformed with that Python installation.
Oh, okay. So I cannot run this. Oh, it's running. So, okay. I just want to make sure the code is working. It is working. All right. Oops. What did I do? Okay. So I have a web service. I can open it, but I need this to be in Heroku. And as I mentioned earlier, GitHub will make a push request. So what I have here is that I have the URL set up. I'm accepting a GET request to the dash URL now to my root, and all it does is returning a hello world. But I need to change it to post. And instead of returning a hello world, I will now try to access the issues event that's sent from GitHub. And I actually need to copy all of this. This is setting up as before, like setting up the GitHub API again. Copy paste everything. All right. And the important part is this registering this router, and I will put it up here. So here, what it's telling us is that it will wait for the issues events, and only when the issues is opened. So it will not react if it is something else, just only when issues is open. And I'm missing some imports. Let's see. So whenever an issue is open, I want to say thanks, right? So we've seen it before. It's like th.post. And if you look at the documentation, where is that? I'm looking for the documentation link, but oh yes, here you go. If you look at GitHub's documentation about issues event, it gives you an example of what kind of data will be sent to you. You will actually get this really big dictionary, and it tells you a lot of things like who was the person, like you can access it from issue, user login, and you have some URLs you can use. So this is basically, if you look at the comments URL, this is the URL you can use to reply to them. So, and I've basically described the same thing here to make the URL can be accessed by event, data, issue, and comments URL. So let's do that. So I will make a post to that URL, and the author is event data, issue, user login. So data equals body message. Okay. Thanks. Author looking into this. All right. Now we got the web service, and now it's time to publish this to Heroku. Let's open my terminal because this is easier for me. Web service. Initial commit URL. All right, it's deployed. Now I have a web service. I will put it here, and a secret. I'm just going to put, you're supposed to put in a secret. It can be anything you want. I'm just going to say hello here. Again, I have my URL and add the webhook. And let's see. I've deployed. Let's see what's going on here. So I can check the log, Heroku log.
While you're looking at that, to
yeah.
people that have had the question, this is the part where you move the work that Mariatta showed in the beginning into the cloud. So that instead of
Yes.
running it on your desktop, you're running it, in this case, on Heroku. What causes it to run? You set up a webhook in GitHub that says, when this thing occurs, go ping that thing. And that thing is the Heroku thing.
Yes, yeah. And because GitHub cannot access your local computer, so
Correct.
it needs to be somewhere on the internet. And
Right.
I chose Heroku because with TSF we got credits from Heroku, so that's the reason.
Looks
But
like
you
you're
can totally
using
use it something else.
Yeah.
My code is not working. Let me take a look.
I thought it was a Python 2 running it, and it got mad about the await, but oh, you don't have a def on the outside for the function,
No,
do you?
I have it.
Oh, you do? Okay, I missed it. All right.
What am I doing? Okay. The code in my documentation is the right one. So I'm going to copy paste everything now. This is the working one. Oops. And oh, one more thing. Yes, I forgot something. Remember I had those environment variables? I have to add it to Heroku as well. So you can go to Heroku and set those environment variables by going to settings, add a config file. So like the gauth here, where can I lost it. I have it here. Do I know? Where is my, aha. So this needs to be in Heroku as well. And a secret, which is hello. The secret is the secret that I put in the webhook. Now, let's commit this. I fixed it. Yeah, let's try. Okay. It's building. So when I commit it, it's automatically rebuilt in Heroku. And then you can go back to the webhooks, your webhook settings, and basically tell it to retry, redeliver this again, and it's working great. Now I have a webhook active, it's active. If I create an issue right now, sure, testing, and with my bot. It's supposed to work, so I'm just going to look at the logs. There's nothing there. Look at the webhook. We got the webhook. Issues is open. But the bot's not working. Oh, there it is. It's just not refreshing, but there's the bot. So it took some going back and forth between Heroku, your code, GitHub, but it's really not a lot of code, 50 lines of code, and I got a working bot in like under an hour. So it's actually simple. Any questions so far?
Sure. There were several questions about, does this only work on GitHub or will it also work on GitLab? I tried to give an answer, but I thought I'd let you also give an answer.
Yes. So this the GitHub library is for GitHub, but somebody found out about GitHub and they made a GitLab that will work for GitLab. So GitLab.
So both of those are Python libraries that wrap the REST API for GitHub and GitLab respectively, right?
Yeah, yeah.
All right, great.
Yeah.
And let's see, Hub and GitLab are implemented with AIO HTTP. That's why you had to use async await and that stuff.
Yes, it is. So GitHub and GitLab works not just with AIO HTTP, but other async web frameworks.
Got it.
But yes, it needs to be async IO. It was built with async IO in mind. Actually, if you go to GitHub's documentation, there are other options if you don't want to use AIO HTTP. There is support for Tornado and Track for other.
Right.
Yeah.
But in general, async is a decent idea for this because your webhook might get multiple events simultaneously and be stalled waiting for a network request.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. And basically, all of our CPython's bots are with GitHub and AIO HTTP. So you're using the same technology that the bots have.
There was a question about a bot that says that this ticket is similar to that ticket and maybe puts a duplicate label on automatically or something. GitHub, when you're making the ticket, will prompt you for that, but is there anything exposed in the API for that?
To detect whether this is a duplicate or something.
Right.
I think that is something you have to build. I am not aware of.
Was it in the JSON payload for the webhook?
No.
Okay.
So this is the webhooks that.
Okay, all right.
It does not tell you, it tells you information of that issue, but I don't think GitHub tells or gives you that information whether, hey, this issue is maybe related to others.
Right. So what you is get in your hook or something the entire corpus and run some crazy Python data science.
Yeah. Yes. Yeah. Yeah. You will do your own analysis and then.
Yeah.
Yeah.
All right, that's all the questions that I have so far. There were several about the async await and AIO HTTP thing, but you handled it well.
Okay, and I did give another tutorial along with Andrew's weblog about AIO HTTP. So that I did that in PyCon US. So feel free to look that material up. So
this is one of the 3-hour tutorials, right?
It is also 3 hours, so I cannot do it right now. But
those have working code that people actually write things. Is that correct?
Yeah. Yeah, and this is the URL. Like everything, all our material was in here. So it gives you a little intro. So
Some question. We just got a question about webhooks,
mm-hmm.
and I'm going to rephrase the question a little bit. As someone who's lived with webhooks and bots on a large open source project, what are they like in practice? How do they fail gracefully? Do they log and let you know why they failed?
Sometimes they do fail. Basically, what we do is we set up now Sentry integration, so we got alerts whenever there is error in the web service. And I do have logs, like I installed a paper trail on my Heroku instances, but I think you need to give your credit card to Heroku for that. If that's not an option, try something else. But there are ways to detect failures. There are failures, it happens. You just have to.
So, for example, in your notes, you talk about the rate limiting for API calls.
Yeah. Yes.
When you hit that, does someone get told?
That is something I had to build in with GitHub in the web service. I think there is an error, that a specific error that rate limit exceeded, and then I write a log based on that. And you can decide whether you want to write a log or you want to get email alerts or something like that. But you can detect that error.
So just to wrap up from the questions part, what have you learned from living with all of this and making tools to improve productivity? What have you learned that was a surprise that you didn't really expect going into this?
What was what I learned? I learned about the APIs. I learned about webhooks. I haven't used webhook before this, but what I really learned is that there are a lot of things I hadn't thought of automating. I didn't know this can be automated, but now that I know how it works, I just have so many ideas. Like I could write bot for every little thing, and I have lots of bots ideas in my mind that I just don't have time to build them all.
Right. Are there any kind of non-technical people issues about people and their expectations about automation and bots and being happy or unhappy?
What? Sorry, I don't quite understand what
Like,
you
here's
mean.
an example. I use a large JavaScript project called Gatsby. It's huge, like 300 megabytes when you install it, dependencies and stuff. And I spent a lot of time filing an issue. I made a video and a repo to reproduce everything. And they didn't answer within 30 days. And the bot said, "Hey, this ticket's gone quiet. I'm closing it."
Oh, I see.
So the bot did what it was told, but it wasn't what I wanted.
Yeah, well, I think that is a policy that the bot makers can decide, right? They could have, instead of closing it, and we actually thought about doing this in CPython as well. Instead of closing it, the bot could have said, hey, everybody, let's take a look at this. This is really old. How about let's focus on these really old issues? And if there is still no activities after another few months, then the bot can close it down. So I think it's a matter of how you want it to work, right? And it doesn't have to be boring. You can add lots of emojis to your bots. You can make your bot fun.
Right.
Yeah.
All right. Any closing you need to do?
So I've shown you how to do all this with Python, and there are lots of codes here, and you need to be, I guess, as a programmer, this can be fun. But I want to show how you can do similar thing with Zapier.
Good.
Yeah, because Zapier is all about automation as well. So let me show you. Zapier does have GitHub integration, and you can do very similar thing as what I just did, like automatically replying um, to issues. So let's take a look.
For those that don't know, which is the company Mariatta works for, is the glue of the internet. They glue every weird thing to every weird thing, and lots of things it would take you 1,000,000,000,000 years to learn how to work with the Evernote REST API and connect to something. But they've done that work for you.
Well, we don't have just weird things. We have lots of useful things. Okay, so here you go. It can listen to new issues that is created. Let me make this bigger. Okay, and choose an account, my account, and which type of issues, any issues, and me, the repo. For now I will make this just my test repo. Now this is basically the same thing. It detects there is a new issue in my repo. That was the webhook that we just built. Zapier does it in just simple clicks like this. And I can automatically reply if I choose the GitHub and say, create a comment and choose me again. And I can choose to reply as a different person. So this time I'm going to reply as my bot. And I can pull in data from the issue, like saying, thanks for opening the issue. And it pulls in the text from the issues that I created and mention the person and things like that. And choose the issue number, issue. And just like that, there is another bot in my repo. Oops, where is that? There is another bot. This is done by Zapier. And you don't have to stop there. You can. I might not just activate it, but you can also like do other thing, not just GitHub to GitHub, but say I want to automatically tweet that somebody just opened an issue. So I will choose Twitter here, create a tweet, and as myself, I'm a new issue and linking that. So this is just an example workflow if you want to automatically tweet whenever somebody creates a new issue, or you can add Slack integration as well if that's your thing. So in just few simple clicks, you can do all of that. But I'm not going to actually do it because I don't want to spam people. But yeah, I just want to show that you can do this in Zapier, or you can build your own bots too. So.
Yeah, we have a couple of Zapier integrations on the developer advocacy team, and I will second a comment just made in the questions panel. Kudos to the Zapier team. This is a beautiful UI. It's extremely usable. All the extra little work that went into things, it's well done.
Cool. I will pass that to my team. We'll be happy to hear that. Thank you.
Yeah. It has the look of something that wasn't just done, but it was refined after it was done.
Oh yeah. Cool. Yeah,
All
that's
right.
all I got.
There's a question that came in, and apply it to Zaps as well as to your GitHub bot work. What are the top 5 most useful applications of these bots and automation besides issue replying?
Okay, for me, the recent bot that I made are for PyLadies, and basically it's a bot that helps we automated the onboarding of new chapter. So when somebody says, I want to start a new chapter in PyLadies, there are a lot of different things we have to do. We have to create them. First, we have to check if there is already a PyLadies chapter in that area. So we need to know whether that exists. If not, we will create the chapter, like basically creating the email address. So if I'm starting a Vancouver PyLadies, I will have vancouver@pyladies.com. And then we want to welcome the person to our Slack. We want to add them to our private organizer Slack. So I have one Zap that is basically 6 different steps here. Basically, whenever there is a new chapter, it will automatically send them the email containing, hey, welcome to PyLadies, another email with their credentials to their new email, to their new PyLadies email address. It automatically posted a Slack message saying, hey, everybody, there is a new PyLadies chapter. Welcome. And there's another Slack message to the organizer saying, please make sure you add this person to the team. And I actually just changed this yesterday that it will actually automatically add the new organizer to the organizer's channel. So it's like 6 different steps in one. There's only one Zap.
And if you think about the personal side of this, here is someone who's volunteered and enthusiastic and ready to work. And in the old days, she would do this, and a day later, a week later, perhaps never. And maybe 3, maybe 6 of those steps would actually be taken. Instead, everything happens immediately, and she feels like she's part of the team.
Yeah, exactly. And this was a problem for it has been a problem. It was the process of creating new chapter was on one person's shoulder, and she has to do this voluntarily. So we have to wait for her to have the time. But now with this bot, we do very little things. All the welcome things happen by bots. So there are lots of, I think you just need to think of what are you still doing manually, and look at Zapier and see how you can do it with Zapier, because I think we have a lot of things that you can automate. Yeah. And yeah. Is that good enough?
I was just going through a couple more questions, but I think that wraps up the last question that we had.
All right.
All right. So, anything else you want to do before closing?
No, but if you have questions for me, I'm on Twitter as Mariatta. Feel free to message me or DM me. I'm also, you can reach me at mariatta@python.org if you'd like to send me an email. But thank you so much for having me here. It's really fun. For those who knows me, you know I love talking about bots. So it's really great I get to share this with you all. So I'm so excited. Thank you.
Sure. I lied a little bit because we had 3 or 4 quote unquote questions at the end, which said, thanks a bunch, JetBrains, for bringing Mariatta. Make sure to get her to come back.
All right. That's great.
So, in fact, as I was saying that, I just got another one of those. So, well done, and thank you very much for taking the time with us about
Thank you.
productivity, as well as the Python core team, and giving people a glimpse behind the curtain on that a little bit. If any of you have any questions later, please don't hesitate to reach out to us by email, social media, etc. I handle the PyCharm Twitter account, so if you give a little nudge at PyCharm, then I'll be the one to reply to you. Maybe I'll make a bot. Yeah.
Yes. Yeah.
A Zap. I'll make a Zap.
You need a bot.
And I'll go on vacation, and the bot will working.
Yeah.
If you'd like to get more information on PyCharm, please site at PyCharm. We'd love your feedback on this webinar. Please give feedback on this webinar so that we can tell Mariatta what a great job she did. So please follow us on Twitter, but more importantly, the after webinar survey. Give some input on that, as well as ideas about what we could do better and any topics that you might want to see in the future. The recording for this will be made available on our YouTube channel soon. If you haven't already, please check out our PyCharm blog, where you can find up-to-date PyCharm news about releases and events. Starting to be release season, so keep your eyes out. In addition to educational resources. So for example, the recording of this webinar will be published on the blog and on Twitter in a few days. We'll also provide additional links and information from the presentation on the blog. That's all from us for today. Thank you very much for joining us, staying to the end, and hope you have a nice day.